Welcome to Charts Today. It is Tuesday, the 11th of August, and we start by looking at the Australian dollar. The Reserve Bank of Australia held rates steady, which was much what the market expected, but they have warned of potentially another rate rise this year. With 3 rate rises already, that is having a bit of an impact on the Australian market. And if we look at the Aussie bond yields, certainly the long-term picture is one of nudging new multi-year highs. So inflation pressures in Australia are still a concern. And if we look at the Aussie market, there was a bit of a relief rally. This is the long-term picture. We go to the short-term picture. We're waiting to see if we activate that upside target. But on the medium term, there will be relief for stocks in Oz. So that's what's happened overnight there. Looking at the dollar index, we are seeing that fall away just in the short term, which has had a bit of an impact on other currencies. Look at the euro. You can see that's relatively flat. The Japanese yen we looked at yesterday, big falls there for the dollar against the yen, mixture of intervention from the Bank of Japan, but still sitting at historically pretty high levels. If we look at the long-term chart, we can see here that we've gone from really about 100 yen to the dollar to 163 into the dollar. That's a significant move over the last 5 years. Looking at sterling, we're waiting to see which way we break there. Look at the short-term chart, just a little bit of upward pressure. And if we look at sterling against the euro, we can see it's relatively flat. Bitcoin, we are seeing on the short term a downside target there, not yet activated. But if you're trading crypto, you will need to keep an eye on that. That's bearish on the 60-minute. It's bearish on the daily below the cloud and bearish on the weekly below the cloud. So this is something to take into account. Nasdaq overnight, we are still waiting to see if we can activate that upside target. That's on the long-term chart, medium term and short term. We can see here that we are just struggling a little bit on resistance, but on the whole, we are still holding above the cloud. The futures are very flat today, 0.02% up on the S&P and 0.04% down on the Nasdaq. So that suggests a very flat opening. UK market, we are up 1/3%. And the DAX in Germany is down about 1/3%. So, sorry, the UK market down about 1/3%. DAX in Germany about 1/3%. So the only market standout really is Japan, nudging new highs there. That has nearly doubled in the course of a couple of years, and that's really significant that we are just still pushing to new highs. That weaker yen pushing up foreign earnings for Japanese companies. The Sensex in India was down 0.5%, yet to activate this upside target, so that's going to be quite key. And if we look at crude oil, we are seeing quite a strong showing there. We put our morning call report out on energy this morning to clients, and we are seeing a lot of green on the screen. Taking a look at some of the soft commodities, cocoa, that's up nearly 1%. Those upside targets weighing heavily there. Coffee, also upside targets and above the cloud. Sugar, we mentioned yesterday, has been making 10-month highs. We've got an upside target there. So that's a really key trend change. Whereas the long-term picture, we still have work to do to get back above the cloud. But this is starting to look quite a lot like a bottom. Gold, we have come back a little bit, but we can see that big bounce on the weekly chart, on the daily chart. We're just nudging this 43.70 level at the moment. Previous level of resistance just being tested and has been broken. And if you look at the 60-minute chart, we have got upside targets there. So gold is certainly starting to look better. Silver is down 1.5%, but again, the trend is changing. Nearly met the upside targets there too. Bond yields in the US, they have been rising, and we are quite close to making another high, which will be very significant. Look at the weekly chart. We've got a fair way to go. We need to cross 5 0.02%, but we have lots of upside targets. Move, consolidation, likely move higher, so really quite key. Looking at tech, this is the SOX Semiconductor Index, Philadelphia Semiconductor Index in the US. We can see that a lot of chip stocks have fallen back and just still remaining a little bit subdued. We saw SpaceX putting in a very strong performance on Friday. Looking at the chart, there's a lot of downside targets there, but we are just starting to recover, so that's quite key. Apple has fallen away, and again, we are just not quite making new highs there, so that's quite significant, but we do have an upside target that's activated. We were down 1.6% yesterday. Amazon looking pretty strong with upside targets, just waiting to see if we activate that new upside target, but we are pushing to new highs for Amazon. Google or Alphabet also just pushing higher. $400 is the key level there. And Microsoft, we are seeing that recovery, that strong recovery continuing. Nvidia down nearly 3% yesterday, so bucking the trend there a little bit. Like most chip stocks, not really managing to make new highs. If we look at the Dow, the bellwethers in the Dow, we're seeing some pretty significant moves. Chevron was up nearly 5% yesterday. We're looking at Johnson & Johnson. Some of these bellwether stocks looking pretty strong. That's the medium-term chart. Look at the short-term chart, it's a little bit more mixed. And if you look at the long-term chart, this has really been a very significant move, breaking that 175 level and pushing higher. So it's not all about tech. Walmart, of course, the long-term picture has changed a bit there, but it has been a star performer over the long term. And looking at banks, we've got JP Morgan, again looking quite strong there on the medium-term chart, so that's also quite key. Looking at the Nasdaq 100, there was down yesterday, so that is in line with that semiconductor index. No big surprises there. We do have an upside target, but we are in a mixed picture with price below the cloud and the lagging line not. There were some big performances though. Datadog was up. Palo Alto Networks breaking to a new high, so that's really significant. Looking at the medium-term chart, look at the long-term chart, that really has just re-rated completely, virtually doubling this year so far. So really quite significant. And there were quite a few other star performers as well. And that's it for today. Keep an eye on those targets. Until tomorrow, have a great day. Bye for now.